4 decades, literally thousands of people have gone missing in the wilds of Alaska. Hundreds of search parties have been organized, and very few of these people have ever surfaced.
From just wanting to go on an adventure in one of the most remote spots in the wilderness of Alaska to the need for an explanation when it comes to the disappearance of an outdoorsman, here is the frightening truth behind the terrifying Bigfoot encounter an experienced survivalist had in the wilderness of Alaska. For as long as many of us can remember, the only real long-lasting impression that we have of the legendary creature that we refer to as Bigfoot is that it is one mysterious creature. Sure, there are some other certainties or concepts close to certainties, such as the fact that it is generally accepted that Bigfoot is a massive hairy bipedal creature, and this claim is even somewhat dubious due to the fact that the evidence of the existence of this creature has always been in dispute. With that in mind, sometimes we are even more unaware when it comes to these legendary creatures' mannerisms. For example, it is believed that Bigfoot may have a tendency to maintain a nocturnal schedule.
These people reported large, scary monsters. They would actually stalk them in their home. The family that was reporting these sightings believed that the Sasquatch killed their German Shepherd by snapping its neck. The police themselves came to the conclusion that this was in fact a credible report of something incredible happening.
Why is this? Is it to hunt or to avoid being detected by the general population? That said, this hasn't stopped it from being detected over the decades. In fact, this has made the encounters even more compelling, as not everyone is guaranteed to survive an experience with the legendary Bigfoot, the survivalist and his venture into the gates of the Arctic. One of such encounters was experienced by Thomas Seibold, a man who was considered to be something of a master survivalist. One fateful day, he decided to see what he was made of by making his way through the famed Gates of the Arctic, the national park that protects portions of the Brooks Range over in northern Alaska. Apparently, the national park is considered to be one of the most remote places on the planet. Aside from that, it is quite large as it covers more than 8 million acres of land in Alaska. Indeed, it is so large that it is considered to be as large as the country of Belgium. This makes it the largest national nature reserve in the U.S. and the second largest forest park on the entire planet. Raw, untouched, and untamed, this land is quite the challenge for anyone who dares to venture into it. Unfortunately, Seibold and his family and friends would learn this the hard way. After some time, many realized that they hadn't heard from their favorite outdoorsman. Once they noticed that Seibold had gone missing, many wondered what could have happened to him in such a hostile place. Could he have succumbed to exposure with such hellish conditions? Or could he have been one of the many supposed victims of the fabled cryptid? To solve this plaguing mystery, we may start off with the fact that 32-year-old Thomas Seibold decided that he was going to go to the gates of the Arctic National Park in the September of 2012. This should have been something of a routine exercise for our experienced outdoorsman and survivalist. For many years, many in his social group considered him to be the man who could survive anywhere. If there was a man that could start a fire from scratch with only 2 sticks, or a man that was able to build a shelter out of snow in the wilderness, it was Thomas Seibold. As such, no one was worried when they heard that he was going in there solo. Well, we would all learn that no one can totally be ready for what nature has in store for us. The haunting disappearance. Before we knew it, 2 months went by. That said, Seibold's family and friends would have felt every moment of those 2 months because they hadn't seen Thomas since he decided to venture into the gates of the Arctic 2 months prior. Whose idea was it to let him go in there by himself anyway?
There have been cases of Sasquatches going after humans as a food source. One example was written about by Teddy Roosevelt in his book, The Wilderness Hunter.
Now, everyone was in a state of panic, especially as he missed his flight home on the 11th of November 2012. With that in mind, it didn't take too long for his family to contact the authorities. Armed with the information of this missing person, the authorities went out to search for Seibold in the last places that he was spotted. For almost 2 weeks, the authorities battled with the unkind conditions as they searched for Seibold, but alas, they just didn't have the resources to combat the forces of nature. With that in mind, the authorities had to call the search of. At that point, they were pretty sure that Seibold must have gotten lost out there. However, this was because among themselves, they were afraid to speak about the other possibilities. The conditions were just too brutal, so much so that even the possibilities of finding his remains were disappearing by the minute. Thankfully, Seibold's family and friends were not ready to give up on him just yet. Eager to find their loved one, they pushed on with their search until they were fortunate enough to find something that encouraged them. You could almost hear the sighs of relief released by those who made it to Chandler Lake, a region that was located in the west of the Brooks Range. There, they came across what they deduced to be Seibold's abandoned campsite. Scattered and disheveled, it was clear that something had happened here. Maybe this was even why Seibold had gone missing to begin with. As they tried to pick up the items that were scattered around in the abandoned campsite, the team experienced some more relief when they came across Seibold's journal. Wet, dirty, and scattered, this journal was filled with the details of Seibold's journey through the gates of hell. Initially, the first few pages of the journal gave the search party hope as it was filled with the details of the wonders of nature that Seibold came across while he was making his way through the mountain range. To him, the landscape was stunning, and the silence and stillness of the woods gave him the peace that he was looking for when he came out there. However, the content of the journal began to take a darker turn as the search party kept on reading it. As the search party turned the pages of Seibold's journal, they came to the conclusion that he believed that something was stalking him while he was out there on his own. Seibold claimed that he just couldn't shake the feeling that he was being followed. The more they read the journal, the more they realized the fear that consumed him as he tried to make sense of what was going on. To make matters worse, he didn't even know what was following him.
This particular vocalization has a definitive sound of aggressiveness. I would say whatever is making this sound is trying to scare this person out of its area.
Looking for more answers, the search party looked through the camera that they found in the campsite. Apparently, they saw something that they refused to release to the public, perhaps for the fear of causing widespread panic. That being said, rumor still has it that they saw something rather unusual in the camera. It told them that there was indeed something rather strange and unusual that was out there with Seibold. Indeed, it even proved to be something that even those that laid their eyes on it could not explain. This says a lot about this creature, especially as the gates of hell is filled with all sorts of wild creatures. After all, this is a place where you can find bears, wolves, caribou, and the likes. As much as the gates of hell is the home to a wide variety of wildlife and forest creatures, the one creature that seems to capture the imagination of many who hear of this place is our mysterious cryptid. Turns out that this is just the place for Bigfoot to thrive. With a lack of human presence and with the gates of hell being such a remote spot to reach, many figure that Bigfoot would love such a place. After all, it is well known for its reclusive nature, and where else could it avoid humans in such a way that it could in this remote national park? As such, there is every chance that Seibold may have run into the legendary creature while he was out there. The road to Kobuk. Looking at the path taken by Seibold when he was making his way through the wilderness, you could see that he was actually making his way to this tiny village known as Kobuk. This is rather impressive because this small village of 150 people is one of the most remote villages you can find in the country, maybe even on the entire planet. To get there, someone like Seibold would have to make his way through some of the toughest and most dangerous places in all of Alaska. As Seibold made his way there, he made a pit stop at a place known as the Cyber House. This was a basic shelter for explorers such as Seibold. Here, these adventurers could regroup within the wilderness. While he was there, Seibold continued to make entries into his journal. Thanks to this act, we were able to determine that he was deeply connected to the beauty and the peace that he found in the remote wilderness. However, he also could not shake off the feeling that something wasn't right about these woods. The more he wrote, the more it appeared that he was in a state of unease. For example, one of his entries tells us that as much as he could notice how beautiful nature was in the area, as much as he found the people of Alaska to be kind and welcoming, his sense of peace was disturbed when he was accosted by a strange creature. Indeed, his journal tells us that one strange night, this strange creature startled him when it came banging on his door. This unsettling banging on the door was followed by this disturbing howl that sent shivers down his spine. Frightened out of his wits, Seibold spent the night hiding away while coming to the conclusion that he had to leave this spot as soon as the sun came up. He didn't want to come face to face with whatever came to his door that night. However, rather than trying to find his way back home, Seibold decided to go even deeper into the wilderness. This meant that he was going to travel about 20 kilometers so that he could set up a new camp at Chandler Lake. Alas, he would find that the journey would be made even more difficult for him because he had an unwanted companion that was following him from within the shadows. With his food supplies being low and the strange howls creeping up on him, Seibold felt that he was being stalked. To make matters even worse, Seibold found the captivating yet terrifying footprints in the mud. These footprints were huge and intimidating, but yet they weren't as frightening as the shelter that they led him to. Despite the fact that these footprints were twice the size of his, he just couldn't take his eyes off the makeshift shelter that was standing right in front of him. Apparently, they were made from tree branches. He figured that it could not be made by hunters. If that was the case, who would have had the sense to build such a thing in such a remote place? Good God Almighty, our man was definitely out of his depth. As much as he wanted to tell himself that this was all in his head, he could not ignore the evidence, especially when he caught something on camera.
All apes, including humans, make nests. So maybe this is some sort of structure that Sasquatches might make.
At first, he thought that it was a bear, but when the creature stood upright, he knew that he was not dealing with the wild animal. In fact, if not for its height and its general gait, he would have thought that this was a man that was watching him from a distance. However, it was too far to make out the details. The only thing that Seibold could tell was the creature's huge frame, dark shaggy hair, and that the creature was burning holes through him with its eyes. No, Seibold knew that it was time to get the heck out of there. He didn't want the creature to come close enough for him to figure out what it was. This proved to be a good decision because at least Seibold was finally able to make it to Chandler Lake. After the 20-kilometer journey, all he wanted to do was get some dinner and rest. With the last bit of food on the fire, he was set to have a full stomach before getting a good night's sleep. However, he would not get to sleep for long because by 10:30 p.m., he would have an unwanted visitor in his camp. Frightened out of his wits, Seibold was able to make one last entry into his diary. Tragically, it was a call for help. Well, the help would come. Unfortunately, it would be about 2 months too late. His story would only be told when the authorities came across his scattered camp and his belongings at Chandler Lake. The only thing that we can now tell after getting our hands on his belongings is that Seibold was definitely not alone in the wilderness that fateful night. Someone or something got to him, and as a result, all we have of Seibold's final days is that something hunted him down. Maybe something ancient such as Bigfoot was drawn to Seibold because he was cooking his food. At that point, some believed that Seibold should have put his adventure to an end. Maybe he should have run straight to the authorities so that they could keep him safe from whatever was following him. Unfortunately, we cannot really determine what his true mental state was. Sure, we have his accounts in his diary, but even then, maybe he didn't believe that he was truly in danger. Well, at least not until that night in the cabin in the woods. It is most likely that he underestimated what was out there with him that fateful night. Maybe he even deluded himself enough to believe that those massive footprints and the strange shelter that he found belonged to a bear. Some even figured that he thought that going even deeper into the wild would have been enough to shake this strange follower off. Whatever the case may be, all we now have when it comes to finding Seibold is the mysterious disappearance of a beloved explorer, the unsolved mystery. With that in mind, all we have now is the mystery of the disappearance of Thomas Seibold. Sure, we have his diary and all those images caught recorded in his camera, but all that tells us is that Seibold's final hours were spent experiencing pain and fear. Even when the authorities found his camp, they only found his scattered belongings. They were unable to unearth what they were really looking for while they were out there, Thomas Seibold himself. To make matters worse, they weren't even able to get any real clues. There was no blood on the site. All they could tell was that something strange was out there. Some did try to propose that Bigfoot was responsible for this unforgivable disappearance, but as you can imagine, those people were laughed off. The searchers were looking for plausible theories, not the figment of some Bigfoot enthusiast's imagination. With that in mind, we are then left haunted by the many theories that came out of Seibold's disappearance. The theories of Seibold's disappearance. Those looking for answers when it came to Seibold's disappearance turned to the most plausible theory they could think of: exposure.
The Sierra sounds are singularly important in the study of Sasquatches. The sounds represent a wide variety of very strange vocalizations that were emitted from unseen entities in the woods. It sounds like people actually speaking an unknown language.
Many of us who know what could be found in the wilderness in Alaska could buy into this theory. After all, Alaska is known for its beautiful yet unforgiving landscape. Aside from its sometimes harsh climate, it is also home to some of the most dangerous and feral wild predators that you can find on the entire planet. If it isn't a massive grizzly bear with its powerful jaws and paws, its packs of wolves won't stop until it hunts you down. We've all seen the National Geographic. When winter hits and food becomes scarcer than ever, these creatures compete for food in such an unforgiving manner. After all, the phrase survival of the fittest is not one made out of whimsy. As such, you could see how a lone camper with even a little amount of food was prime real estate for any of these predators that found him. As such, if exposure to the elements didn't take Seibold, chances are that one of these wild creatures could have been responsible for his disappearance. That said, we are forced to consider these theories to only be theories because there was no sign of any struggle in the camp that Seibold abandoned. Whether he forcibly abandoned it or left on his own volition, we can stand on business when it comes to any of these theories because there are no clues of any attack. No claw marks, no shredded clothes, not even a drop of blood could be found in the area. All we have is the journal that tells us of his descent into fear and the camera that had recordings of the strange creature that could be responsible for Seibold's aforementioned descent. It is almost as though he disappeared off the face of the planet. This concept of his total disappearance makes matters even worse if you ask us. After all, what wild creature is able to clean up after itself? I mean, we know that we are always evolving, but not at this rate. Even cats don't clean up after themselves this well. As such, we cannot get rid of the Bigfoot enthusiasts and their theories. Indeed, looking at the conditions, we must take such theories seriously. After all, unlike other wild creatures that have to endure the winter in Alaska, Bigfoot isn't known to hibernate. It may be the ultimate apex predator in these parts because it would be very active during this time. Unfortunately for Seibold, it would also be really hungry during this time.
The most likely scenario is that a population of giant terrestrial bipedal apes that had dispersed through southern and eastern Asia had expanded its range into North America.
As such, there is every chance that the creature in the footage could have been the legendary cryptid we all know as Bigfoot. What a way to run into Bigfoot, right? The evidence of the footage in the camera is supported by the footprints in the shelter discovered by Seibold. With that in mind, we are forever haunted by the things picked up and recorded by Seibold, especially the image with something that was lurking behind the leaves in the forest. Although it was almost caught by accident, we can tell the figure is something strange. Although some believe that it could have been a human, others are convinced that this could be the legendary Bigfoot. Such a theory may be rubbished by many, but it does make sense. After all, a ton of strange things have been found in the wilderness, be it in Alaska or any other part of the world. To make matters worse, Seibold is not the first to disappear from this neck of the woods. Indeed, it has been reported that such disappearances occur several times every year. Some of these disappearances are explained away. While some have been reported to have fallen victim to exposure while they were out there, it's been recorded that others were victims of one of the wild predators that call the gates of hell home. However, a good number of these people that disappear seem to have done so without any explanation. Maybe one day we would get the answers. That way, we may finally know what happened to someone like Thomas Seibold. From just wanting to go on an adventure in one of the most remote spots in the wilderness of Alaska to the need for an explanation when it comes to the disappearance of an outdoorsman, here is the frightening truth behind the terrifying Bigfoot encounter an experienced survivalist had in the wilderness of Alaska.